beginning now. Today is the end of a series of webinars, but they are entirely separate and individual, so you don't have to have dropped into any in particular. We are going to focus today about looking at Microsoft 365 apps that can be used across an entire organization, regardless of whether you're a primary school, secondary school, college, university. It really doesn't matter. Historically, Microsoft has been focused on looking at, in education, classroom-facing apps, but we are going today to focus on apps that can be used by anyone, regardless of their role. I've posted in the chat, but we are going to extensively use the resources from Microsoft Learn Education Center. That recently replaced the old Microsoft Education Center. It's much improved because it has courses that can be undertaken by pupils and students, but also by you as adults to inform you of what you need to do with a particular application, but also act as a CPD pathway. We will recommend a couple of courses to go and look at on there, but all the resources we're going to look at in the slide deck are all from those sections. So the platform itself, you need to sign into it. If you haven't got an account, you can use your Office 365 account that you've already had given to you by your school. And once you're signed in, it will bring you to a dashboard where it will keep track of your achievements. It will also the courses that you complete, any that you've got outstanding that you haven't quite concluded. And it will also act as a CPD evidence document to pass on to whoever is your line manager. Microsoft recently improved the educator qualifications available. So there used to be something called Microsoft Innovative Educator that went just before the summer. So now the first qualification available on Microsoft Learn for Education is Microsoft Educator. That's very much the entry level qualification for absolutely anybody coming in, very non-threatening, very easy to pick up. And today that is partly what we're basing this training upon. The next step, if you're happy with that, is Microsoft Advanced Educator, and we'll borrow some elements from that today and mention them, but we won't labour it massively. But Microsoft Advanced Educators, for those people that want to get a bit more involved, take a deeper dive into the platform. And this year, the Microsoft Advanced Educator qualification is all around Teams and the different elements of Teams, but also 21st century learning design, teaching those transferable skill sets that you can take elsewhere. But they're also really valued for the staff that we have in our organizations to upskill them and get them more familiar with how technology can help them within their role. If somebody is really enjoying that, then you can apply to be a Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. That is more classroom educator focused, but it will allow people to work within that community and make connections in the UK, but also globally, and attend Microsoft events and really lead digital transformation in their school. So we'll come back to that at the end, and I'll give you some information about how you can redeem codes from today's training in Learn itself. If we come back to the focus of today's session, M365 stands for Microsoft 365. It recently was a result of a rebrand of Office 365. Office 365 will slowly stop being used as a name, and M365 will be there as the new name. In M365, there's a whole range of apps, and many we probably don't touch. We might open it up and we might go to our Outlook for our email, we might use Word to process a document, but don't always get involved with the others. Probably the next most likely would be Teams, depending on where your school or your college is with the use of Teams. But many of those apps that are in there that we haven't touched will help to streamline your processes and reduce the workloads of staff, make it easier to get access to information, but organize it in a logical way and promote collaboration. Two of those apps that are very, very accessible and also have a wide range of uses is Sway and Forms, and we'll have a look at both of those during today's session. But people always ask, well, how do the bigger picture of apps fit together? And the ones to start with will most likely be the group at the top of the window, which are the Office apps, those that you may have had installed historically on your computer, things like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, but then bringing in new elements of working in the cloud, such as your OneDrive to store your personal documents rather than having them on a server in school. Then the next most likely group would be those at the bottom, and that's the collaboration apps, where you've got things like lists, or maybe to do or planner. And those things allow you to organize your work and plan out projects for other people, or show them how you're logically going to deliver something as a change in school. But also there are ways that you can use the apps that we said we will focus on today, which is Forms, to organize and collect data, and Sway as another way of communicating with people and avoiding things like PowerPoints. So if we jump back over, in today's training, we'll split the session in half approximately. We'll look at how you can use Sway to build things like newsletters or internal bulletins, staff notices, and look at how you put a Sway together. And then in the second half of the session, we'll consider how you use Forms to collect data. That might be within school or college, or externally from other people that you engage with, parents or governors and so forth. And then how you do something with that data once you've collected it. So I'm going to swap over, but one of the things I should have said as well is that if you've got any questions or you want to ask me anything, from time to time I'll go back and check the chat. So if there is anything you want to ask me, you don't want to unmute your mic, feel free to pop it in there. I'll just come and read that from time to time. I'm just going to share my other window for you a moment. So you should see a web browser. The browser I'm going to use today is the Edge browser from Microsoft, but Office is accessible in just about anything. So when you get to logging in, you still at the moment go to www.office.com. I don't know in the future whether that's going to get rebranded to m365.com or something, but it is Office at the moment. And you log in with the email address that you've been given for school and the password you normally put in to log into your account. And then you will most likely either land at your Outlook email if you're a member of staff, or you are going to arrive at a landing page. The landing page that you might get to, if I just open it up, will look a little bit like this, where you've got all of your apps available to you down here that you use quite regularly, and there's more of them in there. So that's where you find the apps that we're using today. I've got Sway and Forms pinned on my menu, but if you haven't, you can always go to the All Apps option at the very bottom of that list, and then the apps available in M365 are just there alphabetically for you to go and pick up. Anything that you've also been editing frequently will be available in here, but we are going to focus today very much on using the apps that we've got highlighted, which are Sway and Forms. So I'm going to jump over to Sway. So if I click Sway, you can sometimes get an initial landing page, and that will show you the frequently used documents, and you just need to click on this Sway writing in the top left hand corner and it will take you into this menu. So confusingly, there's an initial landing menu and that has limited access, mostly recent documents, and you then click the Sway button at the top, which takes you through, or you can scroll down and click See All Sways, and that's down in the bottom right hand corner on that page. When you get into Sway, you've got a number of options available to you. You can create a new Sway, which we'll do in a little bit. You can start from a particular topic or theme if you wish. So if you click that, your topic might be school, and then it will create an outline for you. So it will generate an outline, and it might be, so let's say we're going to go secondary school. And then it might be that he comes up with some ideas of secondary school. So it will then start to make suggestions, and you can drill down. And you probably will, if you home it around enough from the Wikipedia searches, come to your own. You can start from a document, so you can choose a document on your computer because you can save Sways and export them, or just start the new version there or start the new version there. Once you've been using Sway for a while, you'll have all of your Sways here, and I'm on the edited tab. It will also show you the ones that you've viewed. It will give you analytics for any Sways that you've used previously. And then anything you've deleted will appear here. And I haven't deleted anything very regularly, so it's empty at this point in time. You can start from templates as well, which I often find is an easier way to begin and then amend what you've been given rather than starting from a blank canvas. But for the purpose of today, we will start from there. Anything inspired is usually topical or seasonal, and it will turn up there. So if we go for a new Sway, when you click on new Sway, you've got a title card. These things here are called cards, and the flow of a Sway is top to bottom down the screen. So when you're building it up, it's easy to think of it like a Lego brick, and that you're going to stack these cards in the flow layout because it flows down it to make up a complete Sway. It's really up to you what you'd like yours to be about. So I might say mine is going to be about the Christmas social. So let's go that. I'm going to send this out internally to staff. So you start with a title card to begin with, and I might want to have something in there that's a bit more eye-catching instead of it just being plain text. So what you can do is you can click on background, and instead of having to go to another tab and find something in a search engine and bring the image back either in your OneDrive or on your computer, you can just search from inside here. It will pick up things from the title or the wordings you've already typed. I'm just going to type Christmas and see what we get. It will try searching in the Creative Commons so that you haven't got anything that's copyright. And I might just nick the bauble stroke pine tree there and bring it over and drop it into there. So once I've finished that, press the cross, get rid of it out of the way, and I'm ready to move on. So now I'm going to select my next card. If you press insert content card, it will make some suggestions based on the previous card for you to choose from. You don't have to take those suggestions, it's just trying to guide you as to what might flow better. But all of the text-based headings or main text boxes can be found under text. If you've already got a heading 1, it will offer you a heading 2. Media, the great thing about Sways is they work a bit like a web page. You can have images embedded, videos, you can have audio clips, you can even embed code from other websites inside, or you can upload files as well. And you can have groups of images so that they will stack in different ways. And I'll show you some examples of that in a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have heading 1, and I'm going to call that venue. And then I'm going to add that in there. Text, it's going to be the Railway Tavern. And the Railway Tavern, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. so everyone knows where we're going. And then I might decide I could add more to this section because the plus is on the white card I've already got, but you've also got a section box with a grey outline around it. So you can add into a new section instead, and then that will start another one off. You can reorganize it at any point, so you can grab them and let them go, and it will reorganize, and you can choose which way it's going to go. If we decided that we're going to go in here and let's have another heading, and then we'll say it's going to be the meal, and we'll pop in something in here about a meal. So we might have images for the meal for the group of text. So here, instead of it being just a set of pictures, we're going to create a stack. So in that stack, we're going to add content, and we're going to have an image. So out will come the image, and we're going to have Christmas dinner. Search that. So in our stack, we'll end up having several images, stack them there, and they can go in and they will stack up for us. And in they go. So we started to make it, but at the moment we are in the view that you would get as somebody creating a sway. And sways have so many different purposes. Use them in the classroom as a teacher, but I've also had everything from reception admin teams using them for parent newsletters through to internal bulletins in a trust. PTAs jumping on this and sharing their updates via Sway, embedding them in websites. So there's lots of scope to go different ways. But once you've got it, the play button at the top lets you view what you already have. So if you press the play button, it will display it in a form that it thinks is best for the content you've created. Now, by default, it normally scrolls top to bottom, but we can change that in a minute. You've got the buttons on the side where you can move across and you can scroll through. So you're moving through, I'll go back into that one. You're moving through one slide at a time, and it will take you through. But I'm decided, look, I don't like the flow. I don't particularly like the way it looks. The only thing I like is the stack of photographs I can flick through like a photo album. And that I do like. So I'm going to go and rework this. So over here, I'm in the storyline mode. This creates my flow of cards. But what I want to do is now change the design. So I'm going to go into design. And over here in the top right hand corner, I've got styles. So I don't like horizontal. I want a vertical scroll. I'm going to change that from there. You can have it as slides, and this offers an alternative to having that. But I think I'd like something that looks a bit more Christmassy. So I'm just going to check down here. There's some themes Now, one of the things with Sway is that you're better to just accept that you would pick a theme and pick some typefaces. You can go individually and you can customize, and then you can go in and you can change things like base colors. So instead of it being a green, I might decide I want a purple. And I might want to change some colors there. I might want to change the font that I have available and go for something completely different. So I think what I'll have is Choir, and we'll go for that one. And you can change animation emphasis and text size and so forth, or you can just press the remix button. And what I say is accepting that it will choose its content based on what you've put in and the way that it flows. The remix button does all that for you. So if you do want to remix, you can press remix and it will completely change it and give you another flavor of what you've got. Actually, I don't mind that too much, but I think I might go back to what I had. And then when I am happy with that, I can just go back to my styles. I can go to my storyline and I'm going to press play again. So let's check it now. It looks a bit more like I wanted it to be. It's vertical scrolling. Clearly, I need a lot more information and content in it, but I'm beginning to get the feel I wanted as a quick information going out to the staff internally instead of me having to tell them because they weren't on his staff briefing. Go back to edit again. And then you've got some options in the top right hand corner that you will end up no doubtly wanting to change. So you click the three dots and it hides another menu. So if this was something you were using regularly, and maybe you've decided to use your weekly parent newsletter in here, you could duplicate this Sway and you could have it as a template. And you simply use the design in the remix to make it feel different every week, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel because you're starting from the same base template on your Sway. So duplicating it out, and or you could save it as a template. It's up to you. You can print it, but you lose the essence of what a Sway is. It's supposed to be live and interactive. You can also export it, and when you export, you can take it out as a Word document or a PDF, or you can just close it down. Again, it loses the nature of what a Sway is meant to be. You go into settings, and in settings, what you can choose are different languages. So you've got to choose the language you are working in, but you can also have other languages as well. So I am going to keep it on the United Kingdom. You can have things like text direction buttons that will show up, but also you can decide whether people can co-author. So I don't want people to co-author, so I'm going to untick that. I also don't want viewers changing the layout of the Sway, but I am going to leave the informational footer there because that works for me. The final button to show you is the share button. And then you've got some decisions to make. At the moment, this only works for the people inside of my school, the people in this organization. If I want to share it outside, so if this wasn't a staff update and it was meant for parents or governors or somebody else or trustees, I would have to say anyone with this link. If you are going to use anyone with this link, you do have more options at the bottom. So you can decide whether you want viewers to have a share button, but additionally, you could have a password. So if it contains something that had sensitive data in it, maybe you didn't want others to get to it and they happen to intercept the link, they still wouldn't be able to get in without knowing the password as well. So there's another safety measure there. I'm going to leave it to inside the organization, and I can decide whether I want people to view, or I may want people to collaborate with me, and you can get people into the same single version. You don't have to have multiple versions. So if you wanted to share them an edit link, you toggle that radial button to edit and then share the link for edit. Make sure you get the right one. If you're sharing outside the organization, once or twice people have come back to me and said, oh no, I've shared the edit button in error. You just have to ask people nicely not to use it. And you could add a password in at that point or change the password, which would make the edit button useless. But it's there for you. You can have a visual link, which will have a visual button to press, and you can embed that thumbnail into things like emails. But equally, you can get an embed code as well as just copying the link. So if I was copying the link, I might put that in the staff's team and everyone can pick it up and click it from there and open the Sway. You can also embed Sways in team, or you can get an embed code, and that says by 760 pixels high, there was dots on the screen, by 500 pixels wide. That would go in my website, and then my Sway would display in my website. Support in websites is quite variable. Some providers are on it and they will allow Sways to sit inside their site, and others don't quite so easily. So it's worth checking in advance before you lose loads of time over trying to embed one of those. I'm going to jump away from the Christmas social and have a look at some others that we've created. So it might be school newsletter, as I said, is one example. So in here, I've got some content that I've already made. And by using that content, here is a school newsletter. We're going to scroll down, got some important dates for our diary. We're going to have various Christmas themed things going on before we break up for holidays. We've had a bit of an historical school celebration going on. So we're looking back at the old building compared to the new building because we've recently replaced it with a new building. And we're also looking forward to the spring term. We've got some new curriculum dates there. So not having a stack, but you can have slider pictures in there. They're quite a nice touch. I'm going to go back and edit. But if you didn't want to have a school newsletter, maybe you're going to inform them of an upcoming residential trip and following an open evening where you've met parents to explain about what's going to happen on the trip and whether they want to sign up and pay for their child to go. You could give all of the information for the residential trip in the newsletter. So here we are, we're going off to the Woodland Trace virtual tour of the school there. So there's an embedded video, so I can press play. And then it links out to YouTube. Obviously, you do need YouTube unblocked internally, but if it was going internally and people are viewing it at home, it's less of a bind. You can embed other documents. So if I created a Microsoft form, which we'll look at in the second half of this training, I can embed it here inside the training. And then there's a what to expect about the facilities. You can get some pictures of what the sleeping arrangements are going to be to allay any fears that parents have. And then I need to carry on editing because I'm going to have a list of the activities and they could possibly sign up from there. Sway is pretty much whatever you would like it to be, and it will suit absolutely anyone in the school. I've seen some caretakers use this, site service staff, if they're giving a guide to how to use a particular element of the building. I've seen IT support departments give Sway guides to maybe printing when a photocopy has changed. There's so many different reasons that you might want to use Sways, and it's just having the time initially to dip your toe in and play with it, because it isn't always the most intuitive thing to use. But once you've had a go at it, you go, oh yeah, so the cards do build up, but I need to make sure I keep going. If I go back into the Christmas social, I keep going back to the design button and then styles and having a look about how I want to change the look and the feel of what I'm doing. And that customize button is normally where most people spend their time, getting it exactly how they want it to look. But usually most people tell me after a while they stop worrying too much about the customization and they take one of the themes that are there with a font and a background and they use that to remix quite quickly, or you can just press the remix button and it will take care of all of that for you. So today's introduction to Sway was to give you a flavor of what it can do and just how you might be able to take it and use it in your own organizations. I'm just going to jump back across and check if there's any chats or any questions gone in there. Just looking now. Do feel free if there's anything you want to ask, or if you want to share because you're already using Sway and you've got that already running in your school. If you had any success at all or you're using it for a particular purpose, do pop it in there. Has anybody got anything they'd like to ask? Feel free to unmute if you prefer just to talk rather than type in the chat. No. If you want to spend more time using Sway, I can see, Sean, you're typing something in there. We do run a deeper workshop on Sways for the Microsoft Advanced Educator. And in the Microsoft Advanced Educator Sway training session, which is just on Sway individually, it's more of a breakout workshop. You have a time to play. I'll be around at the same time. Today is very much about an introduction to it and just thinking about if it's right for you and it's something you want to pick up now. You might decide, look, it's going to be a couple of years down the line. I can't see us using this year or next year, but we'll take it after that. Sean, thank you very much for that. So yeah, using it to showcase children's work with parents. I've seen some really good class pages on school websites with some Sways embedded in them showing school work. But I've successfully myself, I'm an ex-teacher. I've used it for similar purposes, and it makes a refreshing change from using PowerPoints for presentations as well. And it gives, thinking about 21st century learning design and giving the active choice of what they might use as young adults growing up, even in primary school, what they might choose. giving them a choice of using Sway or PowerPoint or other platforms, it tends to be that they choose what's right for them, and they will actively split between the two quite readily. I've used it in primary schools, I must say upper Key Stage 2 rather than Key Stage 1, and through secondary schools, and I haven't ever found a negative experience of it, because I think the children are less fussy with going in and customizing, and if anything, it's improved the flow of the lesson. I know we're not for Howard Teaching and Learning focused today, but I've spent less time worrying about showing them how PowerPoint works or formatting it or little things in the ribbon, and they've just got their content in there and then got to sway out quite quickly. And it's been quite pleasing because all of those animations, fonts and pictures and backgrounds are taken care of by the product itself. Any other questions or experiences with Sway before we swap over and move to forms? No? Okay. What we'll do then is we will move over to forms. So forms itself, again, if you went to the app launcher in the corner and you looked, either it's going to be pinned up at the top. I think it is on most new modern 365 tenancies that have been set up, but you can still go to all apps and it will be there alphabetically after Excel. When you open up forms, it does have a landing page again, and then you come through to the true thing. So unlike Sway, it's not clicking at the top. You scroll down, and at the bottom on the right hand corner, I've already moved through, it will show a hyperlink saying see all forms, and it will bring you through to the proper forms page where you can use it. With forms, there's been quite a few advances recently from Microsoft, and they've added a lot of new features that make it more pleasant to use than even 12 months ago. So when you start, you get a choice to either start from a quiz or a form. Most of the time, quizzes, I would say, are used for teaching and learning focus, and I use them quite extensively to create class quizzes, either for formative assessment or summative assessment in a classroom situation. I have used quizzes occasionally if I'm creating a staff Christmas quiz or something and we're in school and it might be a staff meeting and I want to make it a bit more light-hearted, but it saves me in the meeting worrying about a load of administration because I've already chosen what the answers are, so the staff can just get on with it and have a go. But what we're focusing on today is use of forms across the wider school. So you'll be starting from a new form, and traditionally that's what you might use for data collection as well. Recently, Microsoft added quick import. So quite frequently I get asked, well, are there libraries of Sways or libraries of forms templates that we can go and pick up? And predominantly, no, Microsoft doesn't provide them. There's the odd independent forums that have decided to create them, but they've made quick import recently, and I found this a godsend. So if I've got a old document, it's a Word document or PDF, and I've created it, I can get it into a form, and it involves very little work from me. So if I press quick import before we go showing you a new form, I'll press that and it comes up with a pop-up box to say upload from this device. In the future, I'm assured it will allow you to link to your OneDrive, but now it's asking you to load it from your device. So you click upload from this device and it will look on your device. I am going to open up the dreaded Ofsted parental survey, and it then says, from my Word document I've just linked to, do I want to make it as a form or a quiz? Well, I want to make it as a form because it'll be for parents. I get a little bar that tells me I'm going from Word to forms, and it's the progress of transferring it over and recreating it as a form. This saves quite a bit of time. You can either add another one or you can review the way that it's been imported. So if you start review, it will open up that form. So here is my Ofsted parent view questions, and these were just typed in a Word document. It was very straightforward. In fact, I'll open the Word document so you've got a comparison. Here is my Word document from my OneDrive. That's what it looks like as a Word document. And you can see it's there just let out very, very straightforward, one question after the other. But by uploading, I haven't got to break it, format it, recreate the wheel in here. But then it allows me to go through and look at, well, is there a typo? Has it led something out incorrectly? Should that have been a subtitle there? Is it picked up? And actually that's wrong. That should be a main title or a section heading. And I can just tweak what I've got here rather than have to start again. So it's brought everything in as a long answer or a short answer question with a text, but here I've got some yeses or nos, so I might want to click on that and I need to think about the question type that I've got. So what I could do is change it over and create it as a different question type, or I could put some media in and add a picture. Something that got released last week is not to even have text-based questions, and you can have visual questions that are entirely pictorial, and you can get rid of it that way. If you do need to have something as required, you can toggle it across and say, no, I do want the parents to answer that before they submit the survey. So it's an example of taking existing documents and moving through them. As with everything, you just click on the title of the application you're using, which is Forms, and it will take you back to the library, and it will bring you back into where you were before. So you can see this is the landing page now, and instead of having all laid out across the top, it's stacked, so I can choose a new quiz or a new form. If you want to swap over, you can come back to the landing page that you had previously, excuse me. Another new feature that was added recently are collections. So you click new collection, you can give it a title. Think of collections as folders and their ways of organizing your forms. After even just months of using forms, you'll end up with pages and pages, and it just becomes a bit of a nightmare, even by searching on keyword. So I've introduced collections, and then I order things into those collections. So you can just pick up a form, drag it over, drop it, and then it will form a new collection. So it might be I want the parent view questionnaire to go in there, and their parent view questionnaire is in that collection or that folder, and you navigate by using the thumbnails at the top. Click that, and then you can get back to the top level as well. So it works in a very similar way to navigate as your OneDrive or your SharePoint or Teams. Right, we've spoken enough about the organization of what it's got there. We'll look at some fully fledged forms in a little bit, but let's start from a new form to begin with. So if we click new form, it will be very similar to the way that you started your Sway. You need to give it a title. So let's give this form, let's say, let's have Christmas party as well again, as we're in the season. And this is, please let me know what you'd like. And then you are presented with a choice of question. The choice of question by default is usually multiple choice or single choice, but you could choose text, you can have rating, date, and then the arrow on the side will give you other types of questions. I'll show you an example set of questions in a minute to illustrate each of those, so you can see it from a creation point of view, but also from an end user point as well. So I'm deciding for this question, I do want to stay with choice. And then in here, it's going to give me what I want to say is my first question. So let's say starter choice, and it's going to be something for ordering your meals. And so I can go back to the restaurant to confirm what people would like. So we might have for starter, let's go really adventurous. Let's have salad, and then we'll have pate, and then we'll have the melon. There we go. Look, we're stuck in the 1970s. So we've got three choices there. What you can do is you can say, look, here it's called radio buttons. They're circular, but sometimes you want there to be multiple answers. So if you toggle that across, it allows people to choose more than one. But in this instance, they're not going to get more than one starter, so it's going to be there. Add other option, I might say add other option here, and in there I might say here I want to add a subtitle, so the little lines on the side allow you to get to a submenu subtitle. So in here I'm going to give an instruction to make more sense. So use other option to indicate dietary requirement. And then if I've got anyone that maybe is dairy free, celiac, or anything else, if I can type this afternoon, they can pop that in there and they can tell me they need something else. If you want to get rid of anything at any time, you just press the delete button. If you want to reorder, and I'm going to move melon up, and pate's at the bottom, you can do that there. I also want this to be required because every member of staff needs to order a starter. And over here, I could change this, so instead of it being tick boxes, it could be a drop down box. So I will move that one over to drop down. I think it will work better. It will look a little better. You can shuffle options as well, so that if people are doing this all in one room, they can't look over each other's shoulders and they'll see things in different orders. Once you've done that, you can add the main course, and the main course we are going to have, let's have, we're going to have one meal. So main course. The restaurant is being difficult, and let's apologize for that here. So the main course is apologies. Let's say sorry, let's say sorry, only one choice of meal. The most popular wins. An unusual way of ordering your meal. And then here it's going to be turkey. It's going to be beef. It's going to be a vegan option. It's also going to be the vegan could cover a lot of things, and it might be a dairy-free option. So here I want to make sure that in there they are not going to be able to change things too much. So I'm not going to add an option. I am going to make it required. And in there, I'm going to say that I will potentially add some branching. So let's add a new one in, and it's going to be, are you going to stay for an after party? So we'll have that one in there, and that's going to be our choice of question. So we can go down to the bottom, and you can choose that, and it will add it in, or you can just add your own if you don't want to. So here it might be pudding. And I am going to say, depending on what someone answered, it's not going to be very fair. Up here, I'm going to add some branching in, and I'm going to say that, and this is one of the more advanced features, depending on what they've answered, it's going to choose what happens next. So if they answered beef, for instance, you could say go to pudding choice, and it will then skip through. And it might say if there was an option 4, it will go to option 4. I'll show you a better version of that in a little bit. So there's my branching all sorted. And now I'm at the point where I want to preview it. It's not looking particularly adventurous at the moment. It's in a standard green. It has got things like the immersive reader tool built in here for accessibility. That's really useful, particularly if you've got parents that are EAL and they've got different languages. You might have other reasons. You might have visual impairments, a specific learning need, and if you toggle that on, it takes rid of the busyness and it will scale it back. We've looked at in previous webinars, so I'm not going to labor that too much today, but that's also individually on each question as well. If you then have a look, you go, not too happy with that. It looks a bit bland, not sure it's really laid out in the best way. I've got here a voting theme, so people would vote up and down to say what their top is, and then they would submit it at the bottom, so I've got some idea of whatever it's going to be. The other great thing is with this platform, it's showing you currently how it would look if someone was to view it on a computer. It will scale automatically, and it will change the layout for a mobile device, whether it's a phone or a tablet. So whoever you're giving it to will get a same consistent experience, and you don't have to worry about rescaling things, reorganizing it, laying out it in different ways. That's taken care of by the platform itself. If you want that to look a bit prettier, you go up to the top and use themes. These were recently changed in layout in a slightly different way to even how they were about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but you can choose a theme that's already in there. So it could be, well, this is a bit of a celebration, so we want it to have an animated background, or if you don't like that, you can choose a more static background. You could have something like that, or you can have playing in there. That looks a bit boring. I might go back to that. You can see more themes if you want to, so they're in there, or you can hide them. And then in the bottom corner, if you press the plus, it will take you in to choose your own image. If you want to have your own image or your own animated image, you can also choose your own coloring, so you can have it to match your school. I'm just going to leave the fireworks. That's perfectly fine for what I'm trying to achieve now. The 3 dots in the corner, very similar to Sway, hides lots of other different options. So you can, from there, you can collaborate with others if you click that. So you can get a link for people to come in and view or edit, or you can get a link to set this as a template as well. So in that way, if you've got a form that you're going to use quite regularly, it won't matter. You won't destroy the original. You can get a copy of it. If I go back to the settings here, you can have multilingual, which will again accommodate other languages. It does work in a slightly different way, and this changed a little while ago, but you can add in your other languages. So you might want to have it for, you've got German families that come to your school. But when it comes back to, and I'll preview it, when it comes back to using it, it allows you to drop down and change, but it will end up with changing some of the information there to German, but other bits will not. And the reason it's not changing the questions is you have to go in and manually add it in. One of the things that I've badgered Microsoft for quite extensively in the past and currently is to make that automatic and to use the translation technology they already have in M365 so that it just re-images the words and puts them in as a different language, exactly as it would do in a SWAY to make forms work in a single way. But for now, unfortunately, you have to go in, you have to then add the German for the question in so that when people swap and they toggle in between, they move between the English and the German. That I appreciate as a faff, and I'm not happy with that particularly either, but I'll keep badgering Microsoft on that one as well. The other settings are all in here. So if you're going to send a survey outside of your staff or outside of your pupils, you need to make sure that the top one is on anyone can respond. If you want it inside of your school, it can be anyone in your organization. You can force it to record name, and you can also say that there's only one response per person if you don't want people putting in multiple answers. You can say only specific people and you name them by email address. Responses, you can say you're accepting responses or untick it to say that you're not. I am going to accept responses, but I do want to have a start date. So the start date is going to be from tomorrow because we're having quite a late party, and we'll set it to be available from 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I need to know by the Monday to get that confirmed. So I'll say Monday the 19th, and we'll stop it at 9 in the morning as well. So we've got a few days to do that. You can also set a duration time, and the duration time will give you an idea of how long to complete. You can shuffle questions from there. You can also show a progress bar as well if you wish, but to show the progress bar, you need to add in more sections and questions. So mine's not particularly well developed at the moment to use that. You can say don't submit another response, but because above I chose only one response per person, that is ghosted out. You can also give a thank you message. If you tick that, you can put your own thank you message in there. Thank you, we will order for you. And that will then go back to the member of staff for you. So be anything like in there. There is a character limit, but it's quite generous, so you'd be hard pushed to run out as long as you aren't writing chapter and verse. And then you can have recipients to get receipts of submitting afterwards, and that would use their email notifications as well. So there's various options in there. Because it's internal and I've got my address book, I'm going to use the email notifications, and I'm simply going to press the button and shut that down again. So I'm just going to have another look at it, and then if someone was going to receive it, I'm currently in the viewing mode at the moment. It's telling me it's a 30-minute presentation, 30-minute question. I would say not. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to select my answer. So I want to preview, and in here's my drop down. I'm going to have the salad start, and I'm going to reorder it. I'm going to say that I want beef there, and I think I'll have vegan as another choice, and those two can stay at the bottom. And my pudding, whatever option 2 is going to be, mystery option 2, and I want an email for my response, so I'm going to submit. And it's going to go, sorry, something went wrong, probably because I haven't got my email set. No, it's going to probably go completely wrong. I will come back out and come back in. It should work like that. We'll submit another one, and it should go through. It's obviously having a funny 5 minutes. If it does do that, I would say one of the things that I normally do is just refresh the browser. And when you refresh the browser, you'll come out of the form you're in sometimes, but it normally clears up any sort of glitch that's in the form. Once you've got your responses, they will appear here. Because my response didn't submit, I haven't got one in there. But if I jump back out, forms can be used for just about anything in school. So I've got a governor's survey there for our governors, where they're putting in information about themselves, on their name, their email address, if they've got a particular skill set, and describing the skills they've got, so that they can give me some idea about what they can do for the governing body and how they can maybe contribute more in the future. So you could fill that one in, submit that. Or you might have, for instance, a parental survey. So if I went through to, let's take device survey, I'm looking at rolling out devices and getting better use of devices in school. So in here, I've given you some more pictures rather than just words, and I want to know what sort of devices they've got home. So as a parent, I'm going to go through. I've made this so you can put in one more. So we've got a computer. We've also got a tablet device. Explaining limitations for home learning. So I've got slow broadband, and I am going to say how likely am I to use Microsoft Teams, because my school's going to start to use Teams for more things. So I'm going to say 7 because I did use it during COVID. And how do you feel about having assignments? I'm not so sure. I quite like it written in the book and being able to talk to the teacher, and I'm going to submit that, and then it goes thanks, and I didn't change my response there. But if I now come back out and I go to my responses, it will start to show me I've had 4 responses, average time to fill it in. My survey is still active, gives me some infographics as to what people have said. And then I can use that data to make a decision. If I want to crunch that further, I can press the Open in Excel button, and then it exports all of your data out in Excel, and you can crunch it further using formulas in there, or graphs of some description, whatever you'd like to do. So it looks really friendly. Most people, when they get a Sway or a Forms, are not daunted by it. They will just come in and they will pick it up and use it. I did say we show an example of the different questions. So if I go and find the questionnaire demo in here, yeah, that works in there, and I'll preview this one. So in here, this is an example of now having sections with a progress bar at the bottom. So it shows me I'm on section 1 of 2. And I've got branching in here, and I'll show you it in a minute how it works. But depending on whether I answer whether I'm a morning or an afternoon person, it will send me to a different question after this. So I'm actually an afternoon person. So it's going to say, explain why I'm an afternoon person. And I find it hard to get motivated. And then, how did you find something or other? How did you find thinking about your learning? Well, it was okay. A date example, I might want to pick a date that I think I'm going to be able to start coming in and doing morning learning. So I was going to say I'm going to be able to do that from when we come back in January. I want someone to tell me what they think is the subject they enjoy the most. If I'm going to put that on in morning learning, I'm going to say I would like maths first, followed by a lovely bit of science second, and English last. You can have rating questions as well. So in the instance of having science, I've broken it down into the 3 disciplines, and I might say, how do you rate yourself, as a bit of self-assessment? And I might say, look, I think I'm pretty much emerging in biology. I'm absolutely storming it in chemistry, but my physics, I'm probably about where I think I should be for that. How open am I to trying something new today? Well, I'm going to have my New Year's mindset, so I'm going to say 8. Could also upload files, so you can have it so that people can upload files to you. You can determine the size of that file and the types when you set that question, and that will save to a folder in your OneDrive so nobody else will get to it. Then on to next, and future developments. I haven't even got a question, so I'm just going to submit it, and it's going to get the thanks and the response. And then the responses are in there in a very similar way. So it's got a bit more of information about different comments that I've had in. If you want to see an individual's responses, you can press view results, and then I can scroll through. I can see how long it took someone to complete, a number of minutes and seconds, but also I could look at what they said individually rather than having the mean of everything on the other side. I said that I would show you the branching. So if I click on the question and I want to go look at the branching, so I'm going to add the branching in there. Here's an example of, depending on if someone says morning or afternoon. So if they answer morning, they go straight to question 2. If they've answered afternoon, they skip what is actually question 2, and they go straight to question 3 about explaining why they like in the afternoon versus why they like to work in the morning. So it's more customized, and there's a curated trip through the form, and you're not left there having to answer questions that aren't relevant to you. So I'm just going to come back out of the branching. And then once you get going, you'll very quickly build up a batch of forms that you're going to use. I've landed back in there, so I'm going to go through to all forms again. And you can start to have them, as I said, organized in their collections, and you'll quickly find that you can, in a year of teaching, you'll build up the quizzes and the forms. You might use Classroom Focus if you're not in that sort of role. You'll build up forms for other purposes, whether you're admin team, reception team, business manager, leadership team, whatever it is. You can then have quizzes in here that are relevant, but now you can use the quick import function. It also saves you having to spend hours taking an existing document and making it again, just have it exist inside of Microsoft Forms. So both of those options are there for you. Today, again, was an introduction to that. We do run separate Microsoft Advanced Educator workshops on this, where you can have a go at making it yourself and you can break off and I'll be around. But it was meant to give you an idea of how to do it today. And we've also dropped out on classroom quizzes. I do sometimes use forms in the classroom. So if I'm not using a quiz to check how secure learning is or assess something before we teach it again, I might use a form if we're doing a science survey, for instance. If we were doing a heights check in class, I could get the pupils I'm working with to create the form and then collect their own data, and we use that to analyse in our science inquiry. So there are examples of when a form could sit in the classroom situation as well. Just going to come back and check any questions or any ideas that have been shared again. So at the moment, there aren't any questions in there. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask, whether you'd like to unmute or share?
Oh, hi. Can I ask you a question, Martin? I've set up a couple of forms and I've been struggling to change it to a different language, like a questionnaire or something. Do I assume from what I've just seen that it's not possible to do that?
So it's really difficult and complicated. Let's go back in, and I don't know why Microsoft make it so easy on Sway and so difficult on here. So if you choose your language over here in settings and you multi-link, which is probably what you've done, add a language in there, you then have to go to each question in turn and add the alternative text in that language to be able to then finally go, if I come out of there and I preview it, to be able to finally go to the top, use the drop down language button that would be there and view it in a different language, like I did with German earlier. If you don't pre-write out the questions in German, for instance, then the drop down button at the top does absolutely nothing. And that's what I was referencing with, is my biggest remaining bugbear with forms. And I wish Microsoft would just use the technology they've got to apply a translation automatically rather than having to do that manually.
Okay, so I'd have to go into their Word, use the translation there, and then copy that spot into here.
Yeah, it's a right faff. You could use Microsoft Translator, which is another app, which you can type something into and it will give you it, or you could paste a sentence into and it will give you it back. But you could equally use Word because it does exactly the same translator function. But at the moment, there's no way to have forms do that automatically, which for me is something that frustrates me greatly.
Yeah, I spent ages on it.
Yes.
Okay. At least I know now I can't do it, which is a bit of a relief, really, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's frustrating as it is. You can't, no.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Caroline, thanks. Any other questions at all? No? Okay. I'll jump back over to the presentation to finish off. So I mentioned at the beginning of this session about Microsoft Learn. And that's where you find the resources for today and courses that if you'd like to go and find out more, if you go to Learn and search for getting started with forms or getting started with Sway, it will come up and it will give you information on those, and it will look like some of the resources that I've shown you today on the training sessions because I've based my training upon it. But also under the Microsoft Educator badge, which is what we're delivering today's training, you can also get experience points for having attended today's session. So the code in the middle of the screen, which I'll also paste into the chat next, can be used in Learn. So you'll need to be logged in, and then the bottom left hand corner is a picture of where I'm logged in, and then I clicked my name in the top right hand corner of the browser where the sign in button is at the beginning, and it takes me to my profile page where I've circled in yellow. That's where you click, and then the screenshot on the right hand side of this screen is where you would enter the code. I'm just going to pop the code in the chat. The code is live, so if you're watching this as a video, don't worry, you can still use the code. But at any point you can go and pop that code in there, and it will give you the experience points for coming along today for custom training on forms and on Sway. So that will help with your own CPD as well. So at that point, I'm just going to throw it open to any general questions. I'll also stop the recording for anyone that's listening to this as a recording. Has anybody got any